People were asking over the weekend, of course, after you do the grades of each pick and the class, what did I grade last year's draft class just to see if I'm smart or an idiot? And so why don't we go over these real quick since this segment's kind of short, and then we'll jump back into taking an actual look at some of these draft prospects. All right, let's see how smart I was. Marshawn Lattimore, I gave that pick an A. Ryan Ramczyk, I gave that pick a C+, which obviously that was stupid. But I questioned at that point in time. I'll just read my description. On the surface, this should be a sneaky good pick, and it probably will be a sneaky good pick at some point. It's not Ramczyk's fault. It might not be right now. The Saints admittedly missed out on defensive players like Tack McKinley and Reuben Foster at 32. Two teams traded up to get their guy. Why didn't the Saints, given this was an added pick thanks to the Brandon Cooks trade? So I didn't rip the player. I just ripped the pick. But anyway, that was stupid. Marcus Williams, I gave a B. Alvin Kamara, I gave a B+, maybe instinctively knowing that Adrian Peterson is a total bum. Alex Anzalone, I gave a C+, which I think that's accurate because he only played 4 games for now. Trey Hendrickson, I gave a B. Al-Qadim Muhammad, I gave a B. And the overall class, I gave a B. So if you want to, you can't rip me for saying, oh, last year's class was a bum class right off the bat. I didn't say that. So I at least give myself a little bit of credit.
Yeah, no,
I
think last year's class, look, they had, 5 picks in the top 3 rounds last year. Of course it was going to be better. And it was a good draft class to have a lot of picks. It was much deeper than this year's class. I think both times it's worked out well. And these the general manager, Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, Terry Fontenot, the cognoscenti, the brain trust out there, their job is to know which draft classes have talent, which have depth, and they look out 1-2 years down the road when they make deals, when they try to add draft picks. They're thinking about those things. It's not by happenstance that sometimes they end up with that. And I think in this instance, they realized that draft class was a good one to have a lot of picks at early. In this one, you could have picks late and maybe roll the dice on some guys that might pan out, might have high ceilings, and they might not. There was no risk there in some of these late-round picks.
Right. I'll just throw out my grades for this year's class. I gave the overall class a B, and as for each pick, I gave Marcus Davenport a B. I gave Traquan Smith a B. I was trying to grade that one a little lower, but I just think he was best player available. I think he could be a good player for the Saints. I'm not sure if this year's the year, but maybe at some point. I gave the Rick Leonard pick a C-. I already kind of gave you my explanation there. Natrell Jamerson, I think that could be a steal, as our caller earlier alluded to. I gave that pick a B. Cameron Moore, I gave a C. Boston Scott, I gave a B. Will Clapp, I gave an A-. I think that's at that point in time in the draft, that's why I was so high on that pick, and I gave the overall class a B. So hey, that's I'm giving last year's class a B and this year's class a B. Now, how much will this year's class contribute right away? I think it's different. But also, Jeff, and maybe we'll talk about this in the next segment. Before the draft started, I wrote a column saying the Saints were in a very similar position as they were in the 2014 class, going into that year where they didn't have seemingly a lot of holes, and they gambled on some guys. I don't think they necessarily gambled as much in the 18 class as they did in the 14 class. It's not like with their third-round pick that they went and took, say, a Stanley Jean-Baptiste, who that was just total potential. He's tall. Maybe we can develop him. He was a nobody. And I feel like even with the Traquan Smith, for example, if you're comparing, say, day 2 picks, I feel like Traquan Smith comes with legitimacy. He comes with, what kind of player he is. And then a few years ago, you had no idea what Baptiste would be. You had no idea what Ronald Powell would be. I think they took, in their draft slots, they took less risk with these slots, and I feel like that's a change in the scouting department.
Jeff Ireland.
Right, exactly.
I mean, those picks you made earlier, alluded to earlier, were before Jeff Ireland got here. Yeah, before Jeff Ireland got here. And that was also, in defense of Rick Reiprish, that was back in the phase when Sean Payton was on this kick to change the defense over to a Seattle defense, they thought Stanley Jean-Baptiste would fit the mode of a Richard Sherman press corner. He had
Tall
big,
corner.
long, lanky
Yes.
guy. And it was just a time when they were wandering the desert in search of a defense. I think they've got the right guy in place now, Dennis Allen, to run the defense, and they got a player personnel director that can marry what the Saints coaches want in their scheme with the personnel to fit it. And that's why they're doing so well right now, why they're back on track.
Interesting acceptance of an invitation to rookie camp for the Saints. Why don't I'll give you that after the break.
Tease.
504-260-1280 is the number to get involved. We'll be talking Pelicans Warriors hour number 2, Zurich Classic as well. And we'll keep going with the draft just because this is our first whole look at it. So we'll keep jumping on here as well. So coming back, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app, Dunc Holder.